Hello, everyone. Welcome back to week 2 of our Beyond Medication series called Caregiving Considerations, where we are focusing on transfers and mobility, positioning and transfers, actually. My name is Jen Gillick. I'm the program director at APDA Northwest. I am joined by Heidi Huynh, who is an occupational therapist who is joining us from her bedroom because today we are talking a lot about bed mobility. So we are recording this. We will share the slides. And those of you who are joining us live are welcome to ask questions throughout. And we will get started with week 2 of 4 of this positioning and transfer series. So Heidi, take it away.
All right, perfect. Thank you all for coming back and spending another hour with me. Today, like Jen said, we're going to talk about bed mobility. And so what does that entail? What am I talking about? Basically, anything involving getting in and out of the bed and all the processes leading up to and away from that. So that includes how we approach the bed, how we come up to it before sitting down, how we go from standing to sitting, transitioning from sitting to laying down, maybe repositioning ourselves or helping someone reposition in the bed, and then going from lying to sitting up at the edge of the bed and getting back up. So we'll kind of go through each of those processes. I'll show you some tips on positioning that has been really helpful for those that I've worked with, and then we'll kind of go from there and see if there's any further questions that you all have about it. So, like last week, I'm just going to kind of talk to you guys because I'm going to be demonstrating some things, so you won't see the PowerPoint slides, but we will send them out after just if you want the steps written down for you. But when we're approaching the bed, going up to, like we're going to go sit on the bed, we want to step near the head of the bed. We don't want to sit in the middle of the bed. We don't want to sit at the foot of the bed because then we have a lot more moving we have to do once we're in bed, which is more difficult. So we want to walk up or wheel up, whichever way we're doing it, close toward the head of the bed. If someone does have a bed rail, that would usually be up towards the head of the bed. And so let's say the bed rail stops here. I'll use this as a indicator, okay? So let's say the bed rail stops here. I don't want you sitting here. We want to sit all the way up against the bed rail when we come sit at the edge of the bed because that means we're higher up in the bed, which is going to make it a lot easier when we're moving around. So if you have a bed rail, go right up to that bed rail. You want the back of your legs to touch the bed. Just like any time we're transitioning from standing to sitting, make sure your legs are touching the surface you're going to. And then if you have a walker, you want to keep the walker with you the whole time. You don't want to push the walker up against the wall. You don't want to move the walker out of the way or keep the walker at the foot of the bed and walk around it. If you have a walker, keep the walker with you in front of you all the way until you sit. Of course, locking the brakes as usual. If you're in a wheelchair, then of course we do kind of like what we talked about last week with the transfers with that pizza slice angle, and then we'll transition from the wheelchair to the bed, from the wheelchair at that angle. But today I'm going to kind of show from walking, just assuming that if we're doing it from a wheelchair, we're going back to what we talked about last week with those transfers. So I'll just kind of, I mean, you know what it looks like to walk towards the bed, but I'll show you. Okay, let's say I have a walker in front of me. We're coming all the way up here, and then I'm going to turn, and I still have that walker in front of me. I'm going to lock the brakes, and then I'll sit down. So I'll reach back for the bed. My legs are touching the bed. If I had a bed rail, I could reach for the bed rail to help me transition to sitting. And again, if I had the bed rail, I would be way up against that bed rail. And sometimes I tell people, like, let's say the bed rail is here. As I said before, I don't really want you sitting here. I want you sitting here, touching that rail and almost even turning a little bit so your hip is up above it, but your leg is still kind of, not over the rail. But you want to get up as high in the bed as possible because that's going to make our transition from sitting to laying down, and then being in the right position a lot easier. So once we get here, we're sitting at the edge of the bed, then we just want to lay down. But we don't want to lay back because then we have this whole 90-degree turn we have to go to. A lot of people kind of get in the bed and go at like this diagonal thing, but then we're sideways in the bed. My feet are way close to the bed, my head is over to the side, and we're not straight in the bed where we want to be, and there's still a lot of adjusting that needs to be done. So I'm going towards my left because that's the side of the bed that I'm on, but you want to lean onto your side. So I'm going to lean onto my left side, and then I'll get my legs up at the edge of the bed, and then I'm going to roll onto my back. And now I just have one little hip scoot I had to do, and I'm straight in my bed. My head is all the way up against my pillow, and I'm where I want to be in the bed without having to turn and position and shimmy and scoot a whole bunch. So I'm going to kind of go through that again, all in one process, right? I'm going to walk towards the head of the bed, turn. If I have a walker, lock the brakes, reach back. If I have a bed rail, I can grab it. Another thing that helps people sometimes if they do have a bed rail stay on their side versus leaning back is to use the opposite hand to hold that rail to kind of keep them up close to the edge of the bed, or even just the front of the bed. So if I'm going to lay on my left side, I'm going to use my right hand to grab that bed rail or to grab the edge of the bed because that will help me stay on my side versus leaning back. I can't lean back if I'm holding on to something with this opposite hand. So I'm going to reach with my right hand toward my left side, help me lay on my left side, and then get my feet up into the bed and then roll onto my back. And that just helps us get in the right position of where we want to be. Now, I know some of those steps are easier said than done. So we'll talk about some of those things, how to make it easier if those steps are difficult. But those are kind of the general steps of getting into the bed that we want to go through. So I'm going to pop up here, just make sure, lean onto your side, bring your legs up, roll onto your back. There's tools to help if needed. So I'll show you right now. So this is a leg lifter. So sometimes people have a hard time getting their legs up into the bed. They're too heavy. It's hard to swing them up when we're in that position. So I'll show you how the leg lifter can help, just like any tool. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't. Same thing with the bed rail, which we'll talk more about bed rails at the end, but sometimes it can be very helpful. So I'll come up here again. Let's say I'm sitting here at the side of the bed, and this is just like a little metal wire thingy. It has material over it. It's called a leg lifter. They make a ton of different styles. This is a basic one. The wire goes around in a loop, and that's what I'm going to put my foot into. I loop the loop around my foot. They have some that have a loop and have like extra loops for handles so that as you bring your leg up, you can kind of climb the handle almost to get your leg in a better position. So they have different styles for what people need. But basically, I would use this by putting my foot in it, and as I lay down, I can use my arms to help my leg up into the bed. And if I need it for the other leg too, I can come loop it around and use my arms to help my leg get up into the bed. And then we can kind of scoot where we need to be. Or you can use it once you're in the bed to kind of help scoot the leg left or right if needed. So that's just called a leg lifter. It can be handy in some situations for people who have a difficult time getting their feet up into the bed. All right, so now we're going to talk about rolling. Everyone's at a different stage in where they're at mobility-wise. So we're just going to kind of talk through the line. Sometimes people want to be able to roll side to side because they want to get comfortable and lay on their side when they sleep. Sometimes people need to be rolled to have different things be done for them. Sometimes it gets to the point where someone needs to get dressed in the bed versus standing up. And so they kind of need to roll side to side to get those pants up over the hips. Or if there's a situation where toileting stuff needs to happen in the bed, we want to roll side to side to have that happen. Or to kind of reposition in the bed, we roll side to side. So I'm going to demonstrate the easiest and best way to roll as if someone were doing it themselves. And then we'll talk about how someone would assist someone with that roll if needed. So I'll explain it and then I'll get in the bed and demonstrate it. So first you're laying down flat. You want to bend one knee, the opposite, like if I'm going to roll to the left, I want to bend my right knee and then reach with my right arm and that right knee over across my body, and then I can roll onto my side. So let me just show you. I'm going to get back into the bed here. I didn't realize there'd be so much back and forth in this. This is my workout for the day. Okay, I'm going to roll towards you guys. So I'm going to roll towards my left. When I'm talking from back here, can you all hear me okay? I can't see, so I'm going to assume that's okay. You can tell me if you can't. Let me know. Okay.
Yes,
so I'm going to bend my right. Yeah?
Yes, we're good.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to bend my right knee because I'm rolling to the left. So then I'm going to take my right arm and reach over to the left. So if I had a bed rail, I would take my right arm and reach for that bed rail. If I don't have a bed rail, I'm just going to kind of reach to the edge of the bed. But with this knee bent, I can kind of help throw that hip over, and now I'm on my side. And if I was just going to kind of lay down, I could move my arm and reposition that way. So a lot of times people don't know that just kind of bending this leg and using that to reach over the other one can help you roll onto your side. They might try to roll this way, but then the leg is behind them and it's hard to get all the way up on that hip. So if we're rolling to the left, bend the right knee, reach with the right arm, and kind of throw that knee over your other leg. And here we are on your side. If you are assisting someone to roll onto your side, to roll onto their side, we want to remember what we talked about last week of not like pulling people on the arms or pulling in different directions. We would want to support them behind their shoulder and kind of behind their hip. Those are the two areas. And I don't want to push, right on the shoulder, but back behind it, kind of towards their back. And then about where the hip is with that knee bent to help kind of shift someone over onto their side. So that might be pushing them away from you if they're rolling on the side away from you, or it might be reaching over and pulling someone toward you if you're having them roll toward you. But both instances, you want to make sure that you're close to the person you're caring for. Just like everything else we talked about, we don't want to be reaching over, bending over, straining ourselves to care for somebody else. We want to be nice and close to where we are so that we don't have to reach as far and we can use our whole body to help someone move versus just using our arms or using our back. I think that's the biggest thing. Same thing with the transfers we talked about last week. By getting close and using our knees to bend, we can use our whole bodies to help lift or move someone rather than using our arms. So if someone's laying down in the bed, they have at least one knee bent the opposite way of where they're going, and then they reach with their hands. So let's say they're going to their left. They're going to bend their right leg, their right knee, and they're going to reach with their right arm across their body. Now at this point, they're kind of starting to get that motion, so you can kind of grab behind their shoulder and behind their hips and lift and turn, or reach over and kind of grab in those same places and lift and pull towards you. And that will help them roll more easily than trying to pull or push without having that foot in that up the knee bent position. If someone can't bend their knee, something's going on, it's contracted, they're in a lot of pain or something, there's ways around that. We would want to be gentle with it to get it in a position the best we can to help support that roll. We could just kind of cross the ankles over each other and then roll that way. That will help. It won't be as impactful as bending that knee and using the whole leg. But if they're going to the left, getting that right leg over the left leg is going to help get that momentum to roll that direction. If someone is using like a draw sheet or one of those, they call them chucks in some places, but basically something under them to help kind of slide them up or down in the bed or move someone in the bed. If they're laying on top of something, you could also use that draw sheet to help kind of roll someone also, rather than grabbing their hips and shoulders. But those are ways to kind of help someone roll. But basically, we want that same position we talked about, bending a leg, reaching over them, and then that helps to get into that side lying position. Cool? All right. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I know a lot of people who I go work with them in the afternoon and they get in bed, they get up from bed, they move around, no problem. But they're like, in the morning, I can't get up, or someone's helping them and they're like, they have such a hard time in the morning getting up. When we're laying somewhere for so long and we're sleeping in the same position, we get stiff. Who gets stiff, sore, tired in the morning? It's a little bit harder to move our bodies when we haven't been moving them versus when we've been moving throughout the day. So there are some things we can do while still in the bed to kind of prepare ourselves for getting up. A lot of people that I work with who have a hard time getting up in the morning will come up with some sort of movement routine once they wake up, while they're waiting for someone to come help them, while they're just waiting for themselves to wake up, to get their bodies moving so that when they do get up, it's a lot easier. Why push something and rush into something that's going to be really hard when we can just take a few minutes and get a few movements in, do a few things, and kind of warm ourselves up? Just like if an athlete is going to go for a run, they'll kind of warm up and stretch first, right? We want to warm up our bodies and get ourselves ready for that movement. So I'm going to get in the bed and show you some of those things. We're going to do some heel slides, bringing our feet towards our bum and pushing them away. With our knees bent, we can kind of do butterfly movements. I'll show you. We can do some arm movements and some bridging and hip twisting, depending on what level of movement someone is at. So I'm just going to pop back up in the bed again. All right, we're sitting, getting closer to the head of the bed, laying sideways to get in the bed. All right, one little hip scoot, and I'm lying down in my bed. I'm gonna move this a little bit. My hair's too big. All right, so one thing we can do is heel slides. So that's just gonna be sliding your heels up towards the bottom as high as it'll go and push it back down. You could do one leg at a time. You can do both legs at the same time, bringing them up and pushing them down. This is just also a good exercise for anybody to do, right? Push those legs up, push the legs down. They might not get very far. Someone might only be able to go to here, and that's okay. A little bit of movement is better than no movement, right? If we're doing both legs, maybe they only get to here and then come back down. But then as we keep going, maybe we get a little higher, and then we can go again and get a little higher again. So this will, one, help us start to bend that hip and bend that knee to get us ready for rolling, but it'll also just warm up our hips and our legs and get them moving. You could also just kind of do flutter kicks or knee bounces, bounce your knees up and down, lift your feet up and off the bed, back and forth. Just get whatever movement in those legs that you can. The butterfly movements I was talking about is if we bring our knees up and you have your legs together, but then let's drop our knees to the side, open them up, and bring them together again. So this is a good one because it gets that flexion with the bringing our heels towards our bottom, but it also moves those hips in rotation going in and out to kind of warm ourselves up for any movements that we might have. Same thing, maybe we don't get very far. Maybe our knees only go this high, and then we can just drop our knees to the sides and raise them up. And like I said, this is a good warm-up activity, but these are also just good exercises for anybody to do. Another thing I have people do when they're in the bed is just punch the air. We can punch straight in front, going up. We can go up above our heads. We can come down and punch down by our legs. But just punching the air is getting our arms moving in a way to kind of wake our arms up. Another thing is just bringing our arms out to the side and kind of clapping them together. Getting that movement out, up, and in. We can always do the little roly-polies back and forth. Getting our arms to move however we can. And then the last one I said I was going to show is, the bridging and the hip twists. So if you're able to, another great exercise is to just bridge your hips, lift them up from the bed. So we're going to want to push down on our feet and push down on our shoulders to lift our hips up as if we were doing a bridge. So I'm laying here. I would bend my knees a little bit, and I'm going to push down into my shoulders and my back, and I'll move my hands so you can see, and I'm just going to kind of lift my hips up a little bit. And you can see I'm not going super high. It's not like I'm totally way lifting my hips up off the bed, but getting some pressure off those hips is a good core workout, a good leg workout, and also just helps kind of warm your body up for movement. And then when I was talking about the twist hips, hip twists, it's kind of like you do a bridge and kind of twist the hips like you're gonna go on the other side. Go tilt your hip like you're turning. So kind of like you're rolling, but you can kind of
Heidi has
lift the bum up
frozen.
to help it a little bit. We can kind of
Let's
bridge
give a
and point our
moment
hips
here.
that way.
Okay, Heidi, you froze for a moment. So
I'm sure I froze at a very interesting point also.
yeah, you looked beautiful. Yes, that always.
Thank you. My internet is having a hard time, so let me know if that happens again. We'll just keep going. Okay, we're good. I'm just gonna kind of do that part again. So we were doing the bridges. Did you see me do a bridge? I I don't see you anymore, Jen. I know you're in there somewhere.
My internet was
Okay.
unstable, so it
Oh,
popped me back
okay.
in. So
Perfect.
we are good.
We're all here. Okay.
Technology.
Did you see me doing the bridges, just lifting the hips up?
Yes.
Okay. But then we were just kind of twisting with that. So I would lift the hips up and kind of twist the hips one way and then twist the hips the other way.
Yes.
Even before getting to that, we can kind of, if we're in the bed and we have our knees bent, another great one, which I didn't list on the slide, is to just move our knees together side to side to kind of get them in that motion to be ready to roll to the side also. So rather than just opening them up, they both go to the left, they both go to the right. We're getting that twisting in the back a little bit, just to kind of help warm up those hip joints and the back and get you ready for rolling and moving. So once we do the heel slides, the kind of the rolling, the arm punches, then we're ready, right? To kind of do the same thing again. We want to reach over and we're on our side. And then we'll get up, which is what we're about to talk about, that process in just a minute.
Can you address a little bit for folks? So when someone has Parkinson's, sometimes, I mean, as we know, sometimes their mobility, they're not as nimble as you're demonstrating. It's a lot easier
Right.
for you to do things. So can you address that a little bit with if you're caregiving for somebody who's not as nimble, but some of these mobility things are probably going to be good. How much do you assist versus how much you getting them going? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, definitely. So with these like movements to prepare and getting up, that's what we're talking about.
I think there's a little bit of both.
Okay.
So I think the movements for preparing, but if somebody has difficulty initiating some of this,
Actually doing some of it.
The transfers and like rolling over if somebody's having difficulty, how do you as a caregiver
help them in that process? Yes, definitely.
Keep homing them
So
out.
so we'll start with the things I was just doing with the heel slides and the leg moving in and out, and I mean the punching. So if I'm working with someone and I want them to start doing some of these mobility movements to warm themselves up, get themselves ready to go, I want them to first show me what they can do. So let's say someone is laying down and these are going to be knees, okay? So I want them to bring their knees like all the way up and they get to here. I'll have them do that and then I can kind of help guide and push their leg up in a position. I will do some of these on somebody and kind of film how I would help support them in doing those things. And then we can get those videos attached by the end of the series because I need two people. But I what?
People, but I'm sorry, folks, we didn't have that available at this point.
We're working on it. But I'll do some videos and then we can post them and then you guys can ask questions. So we'll do it for sure before the last session. But basically if I'm going to help someone with the heel slides, instead of, let me just show you one thing real quick. So I want them to kind of bring their feet up, right? But if they can't do that, I would be down here, kind of supporting their foot and supporting their knee, and can kind of push the leg up and pull it down. If I'm helping someone do it, they might not slide the heel. It might be more of a coming up and pushing in that motion to get that flexion. But as a caregiver or someone assisting, again, I don't want to be reaching over or pulling or pushing someone that's going to put strain on me. I would kind of hold the foot and then use my other arm to support the leg and kind of pull that up and down. I know this is a great demonstration there of my acrobatics. If someone were lying down and I wanted them to kind of do the hip twisting like they're getting ready to roll, I would again get close to them. Make sure that someone is, towards the edge of the bed enough that you can reach them easily without bending over them or reaching them. But if their knees are up, you can just kind of guide their knees back and forth. And we don't want to push them all the way to the sides of the bed, right? We don't want to cause pain or go further than what their motion will allow them to, but we want to help kind of facilitate the movement by rocking the knees back and forth. We can, same thing with bringing the knees out to the side and back together. We can just kind of, if someone's leg is up here, you can just support them here and kind of pull it out and push it in a way to get those hips moving. Or if you wanted to do both, just kind of pull them over and push them over. If we did this in another couple weeks, I'd be less nimble and maybe it'd be a better demonstration. With the arm punches and movements, they can probably do some of those, but you can always help guide their arms too in different directions. But with everything, with what I would call this as like range of motion, right? We're seeing how far our motion ranges. We don't want to stretch past towards what's going to hurt someone, but we want to help encourage as big of movements as possible. So we guide them through that without pulling or pushing too hard, if that makes sense. The bridging and the hip twist is kind of more for when someone's at a particular point where they can kind of do that. If someone was not moving as easily, I just wouldn't have them do those exercises. We can do things with helping kind of shift the hips with the draw sheet if someone is on that. But I wouldn't necessarily do that here. With getting into bed, so this is one that I didn't mention. So I'm glad that you brought it up here. If someone is sitting, let's say they can get to the edge of the bed, or you can help get them to the edge of the bed because we do a transfer like we talked about last week, whether it be the stand, turn, sit, or the squat pivot, or helping just kind of shift someone from one place to another. They're sitting here. That's why I like to have a bed rail in some instances for them to hold on to. Let's say if they're going down to the left, hold with their right hand to kind of keep them in this position. And then I, as a caregiver, if they're not able to get their feet up in the bed with the leg lifter or on their own, can kind of grab the feet and pull them up onto the bed. But same thing with that. I was just talking to a caregiver earlier this week, and she was saying that the way things are positioned, sometimes when she lifts someone's legs up, there's more resistance and it's hurting her back. But I think it's all about how we're bending and helping lift someone. So I don't want to bend over and grab someone's legs and lift them up on the bed. I don't want to be bending my back. I want to get close to them, kind of scoop up their legs and use my body to lift their legs into the bed. So I would demonstrate that too. But let's say this is someone's leg, right? Sorry, this is not going to be a very good angle because cameras are hard. But I'm not going to come here and bend over and pick up someone's heavy leg and stick it in the bed. I would come and kind of be at this position. They'd be sitting here, their legs would be down. And I'm going to have my back straight. I'm close to them, and I'm going to kind of scoop up their legs and use my legs to kind of lift their legs up versus using my back, if that makes any sense at all. The biggest things to keep in mind as we're helping someone, as I've said 100 times before, is just to stay close, keep your back straight, bend at the knees, and use your whole body to help lift someone. If they needed help, with the laying down portion, same thing. We would want to kind of get close, and I like to support people. We just don't want to grab arms, and we don't want to be pushing and pulling, right? So it's almost like you give them a hug and kind of help lay them down on the side. But it's hard to do that and the legs with one person. If someone needs that much help getting down into bed, it's easier to have one person help support kind of the torso, the other person support the legs. But if they're at the point where maybe they could sit here and they just want a little guidance, you can kind of support the side that they're going to and kind of lay them down. And then you can transition to the legs and help scoop those up. And then once someone's here, if you kind of scoop them up and they end up in this position, we would just want to kind of get close again, grab the legs, and we could shift by rolling over or picking up one leg at a time and kind of scooting it into the position we want it so someone is straight. Let's say I do get kind of crooked, right? And I'm crooked in the bed here. And you help me by lifting one leg up at a time and bringing it closer to the center of the bed. But now I'm kind of skewed. My shoulders are still in the wrong spot and they need to shift over. We don't want to grab someone by one side and pull them over. I would kind of get close to them, lean over and grab behind both of their shoulders to pull them over. Or if someone was again on a draw sheet, you can use the sheet under them to kind of pull the legs over one way and pull the shoulder over the other way. I would recommend that if someone needs more help repositioning in the bed and you're helping them on your own, to have them laying on something that you can use to help kind of shift them rather than trying to move individual pieces of the body, if that makes sense. We can help them move their legs. Their legs are going to be heavy, but you can get in a position where you can lift them and move them. The harder part is the torso, but you could do that too by coming close and, like I said, almost giving them a hug, but not so close, but kind of putting, one arm under one shoulder, one arm behind the other shoulder where you got them behind their back. So if we were here and then we kind of shift their shoulders over this way, I don't want to be like pulling one side or pushing wouldn't work, but if we kind of grab both shoulders and shift, you can do that also. The hardest part to adjust is someone's hips. And if they are kind of, sideways and you feel like they need to be straighter, if they're wearing pants, you could kind of reach to the underside of the pants and scoot them if they're good fitting pants, but if they're going to bed, it's probably loose and something comfortable, and then you would just give them a wedgie by pulling on the pants. So that's why laying on some type of draw sheet is good, because if I'm kind of cockeyed in the bed, or my right hip is higher than my left hip, so I'm crooked a little bit, if you grab that draw sheet and pull towards the left, that'll help straighten them out a little bit, if that makes any sense. All these things I'm talking about, we should take notes on what I'm saying, and I'll demonstrate them all with a person with a sheet and kind of how to turn it. But just for today, I wanted to get the main parts of our positioning and their positioning coming up to the bed, the sequencing for laying down in the bed, and then if someone needs more help, we'll kind of demonstrate that. I'll do some videos. Could just so we kind of have a better understanding of who we're working with. If we're talking about bed mobility, getting in and out of the bed, repositioning in the bed, sitting up from the bed, could you guys put in the chat the estimated percentage of what the person with Parkinson's, like how much they're doing? Like if they get in the bed by themselves and they can position themselves and scoot themselves over and get up from the bed totally on their own, like 100%. If you feel like you help them about 50% and they do about 50%, you can put like 50-50. Or if you feel like you're doing a lot for them and in positioning them and moving them around, and they do maybe like a quarter of it, then you can put like 25%. So like how much-ish, I know it's all like a rough number, would you estimate the person that you are caring for is kind of doing? So we have a 50-50. It'll just help me kind of see what types of things I want to demonstrate as we continue going forward. I'll give you all a second to put those in the chat, if you would, for me. And then we'll talk about transitioning from lying down back to the edge of the bed. They do about 80%. Okay. So some of these things will be helpful. Early stages, so they're doing most of it. So these are just some things to keep in mind as we progress, what you may be looking at, but also just as they are moving, how to help guide them in those movements. Is there anything, Jen, specific that your question was asking that I didn't answer?
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
Just about how you help more and yeah, addressing that. And I think the videos will help quite a bit to give a visual when there's another person, because we can visualize it, and you're doing a good job like demonstrating visually all on your own when you're working with two people. But I think the videos will just solidify.
Right. Well, and I was gonna, try to grab someone to do with the videos here, which would help, but still, like we were talking with the angles of where we are, if we don't have someone to kind of be in the right spot, you wouldn't be able to see much anyway. So we'll make some videos where we can actually be in a good position and demonstrate some of those things. So now we'll talk about transitioning back to the edge of the bed. I know a lot of people have a hard time getting up from bed, and a lot of them are trying to like do sit-ups in the bed to get themselves up. And I don't even know if I could do a sit-up to get myself out of the bed right now. So we use kind of basically the exact opposite of how I described getting in the bed to get out of the bed. We'll use that, we call it the log roll technique, because when we kind of bend the knee and reach over and roll together, your back is straight. You're not like doing a crunch to sit up. So that's how people get up like after spinal surgery or something, because you have to keep your back straight. So we call it the log roll technique, and it just helps to get someone on their side, and it's typically easier to push up from the side than it is to do a crunch and pull up from nowhere. So I'll just demonstrate how I would have someone do it if they were able to do it on their own, and then we'll talk about how we can help them a little bit. So if someone is here up in the bed and they lay down, okay, we're laying down here. So I want to roll to my left. So I'm going to bend my knee. And then here, what you do with your left hand kind of is dependent upon what someone has and what they need. If you have a bed rail, you could grab the bed rail with both arms or just the left arm and reach, or you could leave this arm straight down and reach over with this hand. So now I'm on my side, but this left arm is kind of tucked under me. I'm going to want to use it. But first, I want to, now that I'm on my side, take my legs and scoot them off the edge of the bed. So if I were able to do it on my own, I would just push my feet so they're kind of hanging off the edge of the bed here. If I needed some help, someone would help me roll like we talked about by grabbing behind my hip and behind the shoulder as I'm reaching and kind of help me onto my side. Now I'm here. I kind of like my arm up better because I'm going to push up from it, but I could be holding a rail or not. Someone could help me scoop my feet off the edge of the bed. And now if I have a bed rail, I can use my right hand to kind of push up on it, but I'm also pushing up on my left elbow to kind of get me in a side position where now I'm on my left elbow, keep scooting the feet off, and I can use my hands to push myself up. Now in this position, I'm not fully at the edge of the bed. My feet didn't come all the way off, so either I could scoot or someone can help by just kind of scooping my legs and pulling them to my left, down at the edge of the bed, and we would kind of scoot in this position. If someone needed help and they were at the edge of the bed, but we were kind of skewed in this position, you would from here want to help grab my legs and position them so they're straight under me, because that's going to help me be able to sit up better. If my legs are to the side, I might not have good balance and I might have a really hard time sitting up here at the edge of the bed. But we'll do that again real quick. If I'm here, I'm going to bend my knee. We're going to reach over, and then I want to scoop my legs off the edge of the bed as far as they'll go. Once they're here, I can push up onto my elbow. Once I'm here, I can use my hand now to push up on the side. And same thing, if someone gets here but they need help coming up, I'm never going to pull someone up from this arm. I'm never going to come grab them and have them pull even from here. If I were someone going to help me, they would grab kind of under my left shoulder, under my left arm, and help lift me up this way till I can support it here. And then I kind of keep shifting, bring the legs over, have my feet flat on the floor. If they're not, I want to scoot forward. So one way to scoot forward, like we talked about last week, is if I kind of lean to my right and shift my left leg forward, and then I can lean to my left and shift my right leg forward. If I couldn't do that on my own, I would lean to the right and someone would kind of grab behind my left hip and pull it forward. And then they could help me lean to my left and grab behind my hip and pull that forward. So now I'm here in this position. From here at the edge of the bed, I could be holding the bed rail, I could be holding the bed, but we want to think of what we talked about last week, bending our knees, getting our feet underneath us, leaning forward, having our nose over our toes, and then we could either stand to grab the walker, stand to start moving, or if I were going to do that squat pivot transfer or transfer to the wheelchair, I would first want to turn and twist my hips so I'm this direction. The wheelchair would be here, and then I would reach across because we would take that arm off that we talked about if we were going to scoot over, reach for the far armrest and kind of scoop myself over that way if we're transitioning from there. So I'm just making sure, scoot to the edge of the bed, position the legs under you so you make sure you're steady sitting there, and someone can kind of help with each of those steps, making sure that we're supporting someone the best we can and not pulling on a limb, not pulling, one direction or another, but really supporting the whole body as you're lifting or turning, pushing and pulling, which I will demonstrate. Any questions about getting up from bed? I wanted to show you real quick the difference between, so let's say I'm here and I want to get up. A lot of people try to get their legs off this way before they roll over, and then we're trying to sit up. And we can, use our elbows, but there's not really, it's hard to get our elbows under us to sit up. But if we roll onto our side, then our elbow's already under us and it's easier to push up from the side. So that's why we do that log roll technique versus just kind of turning and trying to do that sit-up method. Okay, so there are some things to help, like we talked about the leg lifter. We talked about bed rails. So I think I'm just gonna go on Amazon real quick and show you guys again instead of pulling up my PowerPoint because you'll be able to see more. So there's the bed rails, and there's also something called a transfer pole, which is like a tension pole that goes from the floor to the ceiling. And it works great for some people, not as much for others. It really depends on how you position, and what's kind of around you in your environment. But is it something that someone could, once they're sitting at the edge of the bed, hold on to kind of pull themselves up and turn and then sit in the wheelchair? So that's not on the PowerPoint. That's what I want to show you real quick before we're done here, what that looks like. While I'm looking this up, does anybody have any specific questions?
Feel free to unmute yourself to ask, or you can type it in the chat.
Okay, I'm gonna figure out how to share my screen here.
It was also obvious, Heidi, no questions.
Perfect.
Exactly.
All of my interpretive dance moves. Here, share. Okay, sorry. We're gonna share this screen. Okay. Do you see?
It is warming up. It
Okay.
says started sharing screen.
It just looks black to me. Here we are.
I know. There we go.
Okay. So this is between someone's toilet and shower, but just kind of shows it goes from the floor up to the ceiling. Some of them have this little handle thingy to hold on to. Some of them are just a straight pole. Most of them usually have this handle. But that just could help, like if someone's just imagine it's at a bed instead of a toilet. It could, once you're at the edge of the bed, you could grab that then to hold on to and pull up, or once you push up, grab onto that to kind of help with that transfer and then sit down. If someone maybe used a wheelchair and they couldn't transfer back and forth themselves, but they're not at the point where you need to lift them, they can still use their feet. They just need something to hold on to, but a walker isn't the best thing, or they don't have one around or there. These transfer poles can be great options for that. We'll also look real quick while we're here at bed rails because there's different kinds. Some have legs that go down to the floor like this. So this piece goes under the mattress or between the mattress and the box spring. And then this is the handle part that comes up. And you do want to place it properly, right? You don't want it like all the way up at the head, but you want it towards the head of the bed because that's where you're going to get the best momentum and it's going to be safest to use. And then these legs come down and hit the floor. So some people like those just as an extra level of security. Some people don't like them because they get in the way. Some beds it doesn't work because these legs are too long and their bed is too low. You can adjust them, but sometimes they just don't fit in your space. So you definitely want to take a look at your space in the bed and how it's positioned. They also make the same thing. Like this one you can see goes under the mattress. It's this same thing without these extra legs at the bottom. and it just slides underneath, and the weight of the mattress holds it in, or they have straps sometimes that go like around the box spring or around like whatever's under the mattress and hooks to itself to kind of hold it in place. And these are all, but I mean, this is the same thing, but a wider piece that goes under the bed. They make one, oh, this one has a light. They make some cool things. It looks like this one can expand, get wider and shorter. They make some that are more narrow, some that are longer. So you just need to look at what works for you in your space and the person that needs it.
Ooh, that one has a
But
motion sensor on it. Turns
that's
on
pretty
when you
cool.
come back from the restroom. That's kind of cool.
That is pretty cool. That is pretty cool. So, like I said, they have all sorts of things out there. We just need to find them. And if there's ever something that you're wondering, like, hey, this would be helpful, but does that even exist? Let me know. While we
Um,
have just what?
Question
Go
about
ahead.
that, just a comment
Mhm.
about that. Um, One of the things that occupational therapists do, people like you, is there are some occupational therapists who will come in to your home and show you the best equipment for your particular situation. Am I
Mhm.
correct about that?
Yes, that is definitely correct. Um, it depends on what's out there. So they have home health. If someone can qualify for home health, you can find a home health OT that will come in and you can ask some of those things. I do mobile outpatient, which means I go to people's homes and will work with them in their own environment, but it's technically outpatient, so they don't need to qualify for home health just because there's different requirements with that. There are people who will come out just to do like home safety assessments or make recommendations that way. So definitely it is an option if you're looking for that, because you can go, to physical therapy or even OT in a clinic, but really what you need is to figure out how to best set up your home environment and make use of the space that you have. So there are people out there. We just need to find them. And I'm, in Pierce County, King County area, but I don't know too many people, but I know a network of people who know people wherever you may be at. So if you're ever looking, let me know.
You
But
can always call your APDA local chapter or office to see if they have ideas on that.
cool. Um, Let me show the gate belt real quick while I'm thinking about it. This is something we talked about last week is using a gate belt. We talked about ones with buckles that you can then tighten and adjust, but I just want to show how to use this one that has the teeth. So this is just the most basic and simple kind, but you want to come, these are the teeth, right? And it opens up. So you want to come up behind the teeth and come forward, and then you fold it over the teeth and just kind of stick it in here because those teeth are what's going to keep it solid, right? So I'll show you. I know the camera angles are weird, but I'm just going to kind of stand back here. You want to put it down low on someone's waist and then go through the teeth, pull it nice and tight, and then come back this way. We want it low because this is where you're best going to be able to support someone if you are helping lift them up from somewhere, or if you are just kind of guiding them as they're walking. And if something happens, it's going to support them best here. If it's loose and someone needs it, it's not going to do anything. It's going to slide up. It's going to not go where you want it to go. So it might be uncomfortable. And that's why I don't have people just sit and live in gait belts. I'll use them for the transfer, I'll use them for the walking, and then I'll either take them off or we'll just like way loosen it up if we know they're going to need it again in a minute. So they're not sitting in something super tight, but you want it tight as they're moving. Sometimes I'll put it on someone while they're sitting, tighten it up, but then once they stand, things kind of move a little bit and it's a little loose. So then you can take this side and just pull. So it's the side with the teeth, but you just pull it to tighten it and then can go this way. And now it's more secure for while you're walking. We don't want them up high. Sometimes someone might have something where they can't have it low. The problem with having it up high is for other reasons too, but you don't really want to be pulling under the armpits for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of nerves that go through there. We don't want to damage those nerves. We don't want to hurt the arms, the shoulders, the armpits. So we want to support someone down at the waist versus up higher and lifting them from their shoulders. All right, that's all I got. If you have any questions as per usual, just let me know. Jen will send out the
supporting slides and the video. Yes.
To all of that. Since you left, Jen, and came back, oh, there you are. I just never see you, so I never know where you are. Now I see
I'm
you.
here. I'm the mystery voice behind you. And do you
Perfect.
remember what we're covering next week?
I'm
looking it up, but my internet's really slow. Next week we're talking about walking. So
perfect.
safe walking, how to properly size a walker, how to determine the best mobility device, learning some important skills in helping guide somebody and your own safety in that. So we're just going to talk about that when it comes to if you're helping somebody and things to consider with walking.
Perfect.
Okay, I am going to stop the recording. Thank you to those who joined our recording today. Week 3 will be up after we're done with that.
All right, awesome.